I appreciate everybody who hopped on the panel. Shout out to Fantastic.
I'm having an after stream too, man. I'm having an after stream after this.
All right, go to the MOT's after stream. Go to the MOT's after stream. You got the link ready to go?
Cry.
MOT, do you got the link ready to go?
I do. Hold on a second. Let me go to the actual page.
Drop the link. Everybody go over to MOT.
Everybody go over to the communist after stream, y'all.
I'm gonna come over there. I'm gonna cry with you for George. I'm gonna come and help you cry. We're gonna grieve together, bro.
Cake for crackheads.
No, man. Well, y'all blocked over there, man.
But that's what it sounds.
No, man. Y'all blocked over there, man. Like I don't allow y'all to come over there.
I'm crying for justice and reason right now. We can sacrifice Chauvin, but we throwing justice out the window too.
That nigga canceled his fucking check. Cashed his check the minute he put that gun to that pregnant woman's belly. I want to know why her family didn't get at him. It should have never got this far. Her family should have got at that nigga. That nigga should have never seen the light.
All these extenuating circumstances, man.
No, hold on, Trey. I got to do you one better. The cops should have got at him. They should have called the police, and the cops should have been on his neck then.
I'm like, all this, I don't get it, man. Oh, every day it's fuck Pookie, fuck them niggas. Now all of a sudden it's, oh man, we gotta ride for Pookie. I don't get it. Which one is it, Black Manosphere? Is it we gotta separate from these people?
No. They only hate Pookie when it comes to pussy. That's the deal. As long as Pookie leaves the pussy alone, they ain't got no problem with Pookie.
Oh, my bad. Y'all mad because us Pookie niggas out here getting pussy. Oh, is that what it is?
Let's chase that down.
Us Pookie ass niggas get more bitches.
Let's chase that down.
Hold on. We getting out of here. I do want to hear Opinion with Opinion got to say on that.
So here's the question. Is Pookie getting all the punani? Is that a good thing for Black America?
No, I'll say it. As a former Pookie, no, it's not.
Dude, I'm not making that argument. I just think it's hypocritical as fuck.
Yeah.
How is it hypocritical?
Well, you only criticize Pookie when he's fucking with the women you want, but when he's out there shooting little girls, you don't give a fuck about the little girl.
So let's look at that. If those little girls were being sired by the educated lanes, would they be shot in the first place?
All right. Like, listen, man. This isn't hard, by the way. This is why I don't want to kind of go into the actual. What's going on, Charles? You have to understand that this is a very easy thing to get. This case wasn't hard. You had the actual people who testified to medical certainty in the courtroom. You had four people actually. You had a cardiologist who said that the guy didn't die because of a heart attack over those type of reasons. You had a pulmonologist who testified, who actually said that the guy died because of lack of oxygen. You had the coroner who gave the cause of death, which started the whole entire investigation in the first place. This is how investigation starts. It starts from the coroner's report. If the coroner's report says blah, 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 then that's exactly what that is going to be most of the time. It all starts with the coroner's report. You had the doctor who seen George Floyd when he was at the hospital who pronounced him dead. Very simple, right? In this case, that you had so much overwhelming evidence. And now let's look at the actual, thanks for the $5 super chat, Justin March. Okay, so the actual arguments of the case was very simple. Very incredibly simple. How did the guy die? The defense, the people on TV, the people everywhere else said that the guy died from a drug overdose. I'm not going to block you, Lara. I just don't want you on the panel talking to me about stupid shit, but I'm not going to block you off the stream. Yeah, I'm not going to do that. But this is what the case is about. The case is not about all these other extenuating circumstances. This is why you had all these other experts come in to testify. And even though the case was over, we're still arguing about the case as if we don't know what the particulars of the actual case was about. I just don't understand how that's still possible at this point. Now, you just can't go around just claiming victory, even though the case is over. They lost. And I said, listen, if these people don't get this right, in this specific case right here, right now, it would be better off because it would be so embarrassing that all these people came to testify and you still couldn't get a conviction with overwhelming evidence. Then they would have to go and create a whole new system that's going to make rock solid sure that they're never going to be able to get off. Outside of everything that I've said on YouTube, this should be very easy to follow. But I'm going to play for you Candace Owens' comments. And I'm going to play, what's his name? Tucker Carlson's comments. And so we're going to see if Tucker Carlson's comments or Candace Owens' comments has anything to do with the evidence of the trial. I did it again last night, but I'm going to do it again today so that way you can be able to see exactly what's happening here. Hold on a second. Because this case is very clear. And they keep making sure that this stuff works properly, which is the reason why they ask all these questions during the actual jury picking phase of this actual case. It was the defense most of the time who kept asking people about their affiliations with Black Lives Matter and what do you think about the movement? Yes, he kept introducing this when it was time to pick jurors. And this is how he just kept striking people who had any type of affirmation or who lived anywhere near the actual things that happened. As you can see, Lil Big Nate, who talked all that stuff, he didn't jump up on the panel. That's why I stayed up there most of the time, because I knew once I would have left, all those cowards would have jumped on the panel, and then their traitor MBD, their hood conservative, and their SKC nonsense. Even now, they're trying to do this, trying to stand in the middle and trying to say what happened thing. So they joined a panel specifically about the case, but then they want to talk about police reform when they don't talk about these issues at all. This is why I didn't want them try to talk about the issues, because they would have took the focus of how wrong it would be for somebody to actually want this person to be defended, even beyond him being found guilty. So those people didn't learn anything from being wrong. They doubled and tripled down on being wrong. So what you have to understand is that I know what part of the argument that I came to argue, my part, all the facts that people actually seen. And if you have an alternate opinion, you're going to argue your side of the case, because that's the side that you're on. So it's not my job, because they do this in debates too. Like if you watch any type of debates with Matt Dillahunty, like Christians versus atheists, and the actual other person is getting destroyed in the debate, the first thing that they'll ask, well, could you say something positive about the other person? And I'm like, no, this is a debate. You have to bring your side to the debate. Now, once you're trying to do all this other stuff, we're no longer debating. You have to bring your side. Your side is reasonable doubt, based on the fact that the guy died of drugs in the system. It's very true that you can have drugs in your system and you can still be killed by somebody. Now, Mr. Fantastic is right and only right in one case. Depend on which state, but it's most of them. If there was an accident caused and they find out that you have drugs in your system, depending on what state it is, they throw all evidence out the window. The whole fact that you have drugs in your system and that you are in an accident, it's your fault. I have a CDL. That's exactly how it is. This is why if you get in an accident while you have a CDL, the first thing they do is they take your ass to the hospital and they do blood and urine. Doesn't matter what the facts of the case was at all. This is why they wait till those toxicology reports come back to make sure that you're clear and okay before they start investigating the case.
But does that apply to?
No,
like
it doesn't. It doesn't apply to this case.
No. I mean, does it even apply to like police apprehending a suspect? Like, there's a difference between you driving.
No. I'm explaining the difference. Now, in those specific cases, that would be right. But this is a police arresting an officer. Him and his group of people, the way they restrain somebody, they're responsible for death. That's different than the case that I just explained. Now, these people are trained professionals. They're trained in the use of force. These people are trained. So there's no need. Nicole, you got some background. There's no need for that. Like, we know what the verdict was. We know what all the stuff was, but we still had questions in the air about what happened. There's no need for that. Thanks for the $4.99 super chat, NJ. Profit, the police encounter with Floyd should have been citation at most. Chauvin earned his prison cell. Justice was served, plain and simple. No, it shouldn't have been a citation either. They couldn't even prove the fact that the bill was even fake. You have to start from where the actual action started at. The actual action started at potential fake bill. Not definite. Potential fake bill. Right now, I have $120 in my pocket. I took $200 out of the ATM, and I paid this parking fee, whatever, for 80-some bucks for the month for my car in the city that I'm in. The rest of those $620 bills could really be fake bills. Because I took it out of ATM, got 200s, went to the actual person, paid him. I was giving him 20 back, and then I went to a gas station and got 5 20s for the $100 bill. I could quite naturally have a fake $100 bill in my wallet right now. But see, the punishment for that isn't death. The punishment for that isn't putting you in handcuffs. The punishment for that isn't throwing you on the ground. You have a right to be upset if somebody is coming after you for a dumb reason. They didn't like right now, we still don't even know whether or not the $20 bill is fake or not. Even right now, we don't even know. You want to know why? It don't matter. Because the crime starts when he started putting the dude's knee on the neck. All that stuff that happened before, not part of the actual case itself.
It wasn't even by law. If you looked at the law, Mike V has done a deep, in-depth.
Dug it up a whole bunch.
It wasn't even an arrestable offense at that point in time for a $20 bill that he not had. Only way that could be absolutely offensible is if this guy had a certain amount of money that he was using. Also, if there was this guy could actually be proved to be a counterfeit. It'd be a whole lot of things to actually go into that. But a $20 bill like that, when you just tossed it out and just looked at it and said it wasn't even a punishable offense by an arrestable offense by Minnesota law. So the guy didn't even need to be arrested on that. At the end of the day, This guy was mad about dealing with this brother, and then he went way overboard. That's what happened. Anyway, go ahead.
All right. So what I'm simply saying, you know what it should have happened? Excuse me, sir. Are you the guy who was in Cup Foods? Yes. Could I have your ID? Yes. So what we're going to do, this is the situation that's going on here. They say you got a fake $20 bill. I don't know whether it's fake or not. I'm going to get your information, and we'll get with you in the future if there's a problem with this bill. I was a person who was under investigation for a situation like this. Let me tell you what the process is. In this state that I was in, where this actually happened, it happened to me. I took the bill, went up there, paid for it. They thought it was fake. Police was called. They came over, very professional. Luckily, a very crowded place near a military installation. So they advised me what happened. So what they do in these situations is they have you fill out a form. Well, in this state, they have you fill out a form with all your information. And you have to write down all the places that you visited beforehand and how you ended up here with this actual bill. Most of the time, nothing happens because they're going to go to these other facilities to see if these other facilities are actually handing out the fake bills itself. Guess what happens if I end up with another fake bill? They already, because your name goes into a database, by the way. People don't know that. Your name goes into a database. So if you get caught in another state with another fake bill, that's why they start a paper trail of these type of activities. No one needs to be arrested in these type of cases because guess what happens? This stuff turns federal pretty quick. It's not going to be a local charge. So in these type of situations, there needs to be a minimum amount of things that happen. Not everybody needs to be in handcuffs. Not everybody needs to be going to jail for nonsense and then be released under their own recognizance once they go to jail. None of that stuff needs to happen. What's going on, Craig? Check out. So that's the issue here. It's a minimum level of how law enforcement is supposed to work. You're supposed to have standardized procedures, practice across the board, so that way we can get a specific result. Renaissance?
But with these people, I listened to some of it and then I had to turn it off because I was like, I'll see how you stayed up there.
No. I stayed up there because I didn't want Little Big Nate to jump up there and just start, going off on his tangents. Because I know if Trader MBD and Hood Servative stayed up there, it was only going to be a moment of time to where all the helmet niggas was going to go up there and be one unified, Optimus Prime helmet. We're going to let that shit happen. That's why I stayed up there.
Because I mean, you can't win with these guys because here's the thing. If he would have walked, they would have been saying, see, you got to settle these things in court. You can't settle them in the media, this and that. They didn't prove their case beyond a reasonable doubt. They be touting the evidence. Now that it's gone this way, they're now saying, oh, well, they were pressured by the media and they didn't want any violence and things like that. And Maxine Waters, I'm like, dude, the jury was ordered not to listen to the news. So all this stuff you're talking about, they should have never heard in the first place.
This is why I say when the actual judge would start bringing up what Maxine Waters say, that's something that he brought into the courtroom. That isn't anything that the jury have because they're sequestered. All sequestering is you go to a hotel and you can't have any type of access to social media and all that type of shit. You're over there. It's pretty secure. There's police everywhere to make sure there ain't nobody doing shit. And they normally cater food to you inside the hotel where you're staying at. So that way you're not having any outside influences. That's when the case that I did in Colorado, that's what it was. So for a judge to be bringing in outside shit that ain't got nothing to do with the case, no juror said that they were going to be potentially swayed by the things that Maxine Waters said. This is why it was even a bad idea for even bring up that kind of stuff in the first place.
Yeah, and then you had Trey say that stop and frisk actually worked. I was like, okay, I'm done after this. I was like, you're just talking crazy at this point. You are literally advocating that a program that has been proven in paper after paper to not have worked, to have been applied in a discriminatory manner against Black and Hispanic men, and here you are sitting there saying this worked, and trying to claim that, oh, I don't care if Chauvin was a crack. I don't care about Chauvin. I don't care about George Floyd. I don't care about the opioids epidemic. And those people either. I'm like, you wouldn't go over to a predominantly white channel and have the same sort of rhetoric of, oh, just screw all those people, whatever happens. Like, they wouldn't let you get away with that.
They would throw you off the plane in a heartbeat. They would not allow you to say that. They would assume that you're trolling, and they're not going to allow. Like, listen, we all know that they're grifters. That's clear. But what they're not going to allow you to do is come on to their platform and try to take their stuff too far in a direction that it shouldn't be going into. They're not going to allow you to do that. So, Nicole?
Yeah, I was just sitting there. You guys were kind of making the points here, but it's actually kind of a joke as to what's really been going on. I just said something here in the chat. I listened to what these guys are saying, how they're going off and sounding as crazy as they are. You even have somebody like even a former President Bush, who is actually on. I saw him on a TV, on a news clip just yesterday, speaking out pretty much against what's been going on with the far right wing and these so-called conservatives here. And here is the president of the neocons. He. Karl Rove and their whole crew. They all launched this. Rumsfeld and all of them. Cheney, Vice President Cheney. They all laid all this out. Now here he's looking at saying these guys are way out of line. So these guys have come over here and have become far more nativist and so forth, and gone way over the edge than what they even consider conservatism to even be. Now, so basically, he stopped short of calling them white nationalists or supremacists. He stopped short of that, but that's basically where he was going. And you have these Negroes, these Black people, going even further than that. And you're looking at this. It's this is actually this is very strange, very strange that we have. And the grifters, we have guys who are definitely grifting, but I actually think some of these guys now that I listen to and see what's going on, I think some of these guys, their minds, there's something wrong with their minds. They, I'm not going to go as far as saying some of these guys are partially insane, because I actually do believe that. But some of these guys, their minds ain't right, and that's what I have to say about it. I'm not getting on panels with guys like that, sounding way out there. We don't see any other ethnic groups backing people up with their knees and shit on their people's necks like that, and saying that these guys need to be. So forth. We don't see this. But anyway, guys, go ahead.
Yeah. But the reason why I went on there for this conversation is because I want people to see what these people think. They know that they're dead wrong, right? Dead to the wrong. But I just want people to see how they try to justify after they're wrong.
Well, I give you a lot of credit. And listen, I give you a lot of credit, MOT, for dealing like, because I know you can be highly explosive and sometimes you go off, you go off too. I understand it. I don't know how you do it. I'm not doing it. I might sit up there with some of these insane people. These guys, their minds are gone. So there's no reason to talk. And listen, I can't work with them. I can't do it. There's no way you can work with them. You can't do it. So,
but it's very good that they're not politically organized. Otherwise, there would be a much greater threat to everybody.
Now, I wish they would politically organize, because I would love to see you go out in real life and go take these talking points to Black people and see how they look at you. I would love to see it.
You better be careful where you're talking, because if you're not there strapped and stacked, and they're not, your ass is gonna have a hard time walking out of some of these spots. I can tell you right now. Okay.
Melody, thank you for the.
You go to my Racines in Harlem, talk that bullshit, and you ain't walking out of there. You ain't walking out in one piece. I can tell you that right now. You ain't walking out in one piece. I'm a bad man. Yeah, okay. Talk that bullshit. You carry your ass out of there. Go ahead.
Melody with the $14.99 super chat. What the fuck is wrong with people shaking my head? Yes, you need to go back and watch that live stream. You need to go back and watch it because people need to know, like, if they were on that trial, they would have probably let that dude go. Yes, of course, it was a cut and dry murder case. The only thing they're doing is emotionally gaslighting people and thinking that that's power. That's not power. The power to actually go against obvious reality in front of your face is not power. And okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to play Tucker Carlson's response to the actual verdict, and he invited on a guy from the, I think the NYPD. His name is Ed Gavin. So we're going to see what Tucker Carlson has to say about the verdict. And then we're going to compare it to what we heard on Benard Riley's panel and see if it's somewhere near the same thing.
The ironic thing with him too, he even seems to have getting dragged into this craziness. You know,
yes, he is.
He used to be somewhat of a more conservative, like a more stable verse. He's almost seemed like he's trying to go for the Rush Limbaugh effect now.
He is, and normally this guy wouldn't even be on TV. Like if Bill O'Reilly would not have got fired, this guy would have never been allowed on anybody's TV, unless like the OAN and the what is that Newsmax TV would have came along later. He would have been the top of that, but no, it created an opportunity for somebody who doesn't need to be on TV to actually need to be on there. It's crazy, and so I'm going to play this clip, and you tell me whether the focus is on justice or not.
Ed Gavin is a former deputy sheriff at the New York City Sheriff's Department. He joins us with his perspective on what this means for law enforcement. Hey, Gavin, thanks so much for coming on today. Who's going to become a cop going forward, do you think?
Well, I think people will still become police officers. This really is a learning experience for everyone. Let's face it, what we saw in that video was pure savagery. I mean, the documentary evidence showed the police officer putting his knee on the perpetrator's neck while he was rear cuffed and his stomach was on the ground, causing positional asphyxia. So what I'd like to see, Tucker, is I'd like to see more training for police. I'd like to see the police trained as EMTs, like in the fire department. For example, in the New York City Fire Department, we have firefighters that are EMTs. But who gets to the scene first in most of these situations? It's the police. So
I'm going to stop this. The look on Tucker Carlson's face is, what? All right, but I'm going to play the rest of this.
In reviewing the tape, what I noticed was that the police officer removed the subject, Mr. Floyd, from his vehicle, and he was able to handcuff him, and then he was able to seat him on the ground, and he was handcuffed. At that point, they should have left him there. You know, there was no reason to move him, and obviously, Mr. Floyd was emotionally disturbed. And at that point, you may want to say, "Hey, Mr. Floyd, let me take your pulse." Things of this nature, and we have to change the way we deal with people. Now, I've used I've used force on literally over 500 people in my 21-year career in the New York City Department of Correction and in the New York City Sheriff's Department. I've never had anybody go unconscious. And, you know, that was clearly an excessive, unjustified use of force. I think the verdict was just. I think we had documentary evidence. We had testimonial evidence. And, you know, it was an open and shut case. But moving forward, what we need to do, in my opinion, is we need to have.
How about enforce the law? Do we need to do that? So hold on, wait. Slow down. Do we enforce the law? Like, let's say people are going through the windows and me.
Do we enforce the law? Yeah, that's what happened in this case. So now I'm going to show you how a person who knows what the actual subject and issue is, how they divert the actual situation into an SKC style red herring.
Yeah, he was trying to gaslight right there.
Yeah. No. He's not even done with the statement. I wanted to pause it before the statement actually happened. So now you're going to hear him after everything that a retired police officer just said, 500 uses of force, never had anybody go unconscious. And this is what this guy's going to say. After 2 minutes of him just explaining himself, this is what Tucker Carlson says.
And the cops are just standing there. Do they resign
No,
because obviously their honor is being violated, but they're not doing anything about it? When do they start doing something about it and protecting everyone else, not just George Floyd?
No. I want people to protect. I want the police to protect people. But when specifically what we're dealing with a person in custody who was handcuffed and he was subdued.
Right.
At that point, we have to take a different tack. And one of the things I just want to suggest,
Believe that. Yeah.
The U.S. Department of Justice came out with a position paper on positional asphyxia and sudden death. It was published in 1995 and again in 1998. I think every law enforcement officer should read that. It should be read at roll calls. Because what it does, it talks about the physiology of a struggle. Now, like I said, Mr. Floyd was brought under control. What should have happened at that point is EMS should have been summoned, and he should have been placed in an ambulance. And a supervisor should have been called to the scene. I just think that it was excessive, and it shouldn't happen. And what I'd like to say,
the guy who did it looks like he's going to spend the rest of his life in prison. So I'm kind of more worried about the rest of the country, which, thanks to police inaction, in case you haven't noticed, is like boarded up. So that's more my concern. But I appreciate you coming on, Ed Gavin. Thank you. Nope, done. Thank you.
You pretty much kicked him off the air because he was trying to gaslight and laugh his way through the actual interview. And that's exactly what SKC does, Trader MBD does, the Hood Conservative does. And I'm glad them guys are here so they can draw out all the other people who are not to be taken seriously here. Yes, these are the same type of people who can't stick to the actual topic. They have to talk about everything else but the actual topic. This is why I didn't let them go on to talk about police reform. I want them to stick to the fact that this dude is guilty as hell, and there is no way that you're going to come here and argue otherwise. You're not going to come here and misconstrue all the evidence that was presented and talk about what you want to talk about. No.
Well, MOT, where is he even talking about? Where have there been riots? Like, you've had protests. What are you even talking about? He's like, America's boarded up. Like,
yeah,
it's just like, dude, what are you talking about? Like, you go literally from him trying to say, hey, the subject is detained. You didn't need to put him on the ground. You could have just let him sit like where he was sitting before, or have him go back to sitting on the ground like he was prior to putting him in the police car. And you go from, well, I'm not concerned about that. He's in jail. I'm worried about America being boarded up. It's like,
hold
okay.
on a second. Well, hold on a second. What about that 7-year-old girl that was shot in Chicago? That'll come up. They'll try to totally step around everything and then talk about.
They only use black death when it's convenient to them, man. They don't care about that black girl.
No. They don't. But that's what they'll come up with. They ain't doing a damn thing about it, but they'll bring that up to basically sidetrack and get off the real facts of what's really going on. And that's what they'll bring up. They'll bring that kind of thing up. That's all you'll see. That's why I don't sit around and talk to these guys, because I understand that these guys are not about really having any kind of constructive conversation. They're here to gaslight, to troll, talk other madness, and try to grab the ABL game, or try to get up there like
Officer Tatum.
Yeah, and try to just run their grift game. It's not really working for them, but that's the game that they're playing, and I don't really have time for it. And MOT, I have to give you credit. You can stand in there. You can stand in the pocket with these dudes. I say keep doing that. I'm definitely not gonna be standing in the pocket with these cats. Mike, I think Mike.
Okay, so before I go to Mike V, I want you to notice the look on the dude's face, because it's the same look that Ice Cube had on his face when Roland Martin asked him about what was the difference between the Platinum Plan and actual the contract for Black America. It's going to be a similar look. That's what he looked like when that guy was explaining stuff. That dude was like, "Whoa!" All right, go ahead, Mike.
Hey, piece of the panel, piece of the chat. I didn't watch all of the BR stream. I was just kind of in and out, but from what I've heard, I'm not sure why certain people get on panels if they don't have a legitimate talking point to make. Heckling people and stuff like that. That's why the conversation, kind of fell apart, because there's not enough moderation. There's too much leniency towards, domestic terrorists and things of that nature, getting on panels and just gish galloping their way around, and nobody's ever questioning the legitimacy of it. And so as a after stream follow-up, Hey, Nagone, you're gonna have to mute yourself.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't know. Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah, as a BR post stream follow up, none of these guys brought up the Minnesota statutes at all.
None.
You know, none of them brought it up. They don't care to actually speak from a legal standpoint. They only want to speak from a toxicology standpoint when toxicology was thrown out. And so the statute states that if you have counterfeit currency in excess of $1,000, this is a punishable offense. It's considered to be a stiff penalty, basically by the state, not even federal, just by the state itself. The bill in question was $20. If you look at the trial and look at the video, you'll see that whoever was handling the bill, I think it was Derek Chauvin, they put it inside the envelope for further forensics. Even at that position, that juncture, he should have never been touched in the first place. That's the starting point of how we even got here.
Yes.
They arrested this person in very hostile fashion over a $20 questionable bill. You had people who stormed the Capitol who was able to walk around, smear it with feces, urine, Confederate flags. They were not even touched. The difference in policing is what we're talking about here. And so police accountability, civilian review boards, a civilian review board in Minnesota would have prevented Derek Chauvin from being on the force because of the 18 complaints that were filed against him. You can never go into a publicly traded organization with 18 complaints filed against you and you still have a job the next day. Impossible.
Of any kind.
The professionalism would have ruled you out. HR would have got rid of you already. And so what I'm saying here is, for all of these so-called conservatives who believe in personal accountability, they didn't see personal accountability for Derek Chauvin. They only saw it for George Floyd. And so they kept bringing up his past as a way to mischaracterize him at the situation at hand, when in reality he was not on trial. It was Derek Chauvin.
Correct. And like along with that point, Mike, I'm going to play the Candace Owens reaction, because this is very clear about what they tried to do and what they're talking about as the evidence in this actual thing. So we're going to get her actual comments. This is Candace Owens.
Joining us, your thoughts on the guilty verdict, guilty on all charges?
It's the wrong verdict, in my opinion. And I think that it's indicative of the fact that we now live in mob rule. This is mob rule society. I mean, this is based on the evidence that we saw, and this was polluted from start to finish. So to me, the most important element of this, which I found to be astonishing, was the fact that they never released the full police footage. They had it, they sat on it, they locked it down. It leaked months and months later after the riots, via the Daily Mail, I think. But when I watched the full tape, I was astonished that they didn't think to just at least add this context so that people understood, yes, this person was high out of his mind. He asked to be put on the ground. He was resisting arrest. Let's not forget what they did, the power they had in setting up this narrative to begin with. First, the media said he was just getting his life together. Remember St. George? You guys remember St. George, right? He was just getting his life together. He had moved to Minnesota. Yes, he was, had been in prison in the past, but he was just helping the youth. And everyone was crying, and it was, oh my gosh, this man is, is getting a second chance at life. And, maybe had the wrong ID or whatever it was using counterfeit bills. And somebody called the police, and then he was killed. He was brutally murdered on the basis of him being black. No indication. Nothing was said out of Derek Chauvin's mouth that should insinuate that this was about being black versus white. But that was what the media ran with. And then they successfully hid every piece of evidence that would have transformed public opinion, right? Every piece of evidence that would have said, wait a second, there's more here. And they were upset when I released the video and just went over his track record, because it was clear to me, according to his track record, that it was very unlikely that a person that spends, approximately 9 stints in prison was really just getting his life together after having served the last one. So, to me, I think the saddest part of this is that what we need to acknowledge is that right now, mob rules. The media creates them.
All right. Now, with that interview, those guys brought her on to say that very specific thing that she was saying. None of those guys said a word, and you should have looked on the You should have seen the look on those guys' faces. None of those guys said a word, and you should have looked on them. You should have seen the look on their faces. Yeah. So it's like they brought her on to make this specific point that nobody else is making. So what Candace Owens is actually talking about is talking about victim blaming. It doesn't matter that the dude's knee was on the neck for 9 minutes. Let's talk about these other issues that we can destroy this dude's credibility. It's not about the crime. That was Candace Owens, Jessica asked.
But MOT, that if they even thought about saying that, they know their career is over. That's why they brought her up there. She can get away with saying something like that.
Correct. And that's the only reason why she was surrounded by, 5 white guys. And none of those people said anything. And you should have seen the looks on their faces. Some of them had horror and disgusting going on. But, bro, listen, these people have got to be removed. Like, that should be a fine. A fine when you do something like that. Because, see, there's no consequences when you go around doing stuff like that. Like, they didn't even have union officials who came out, who come on TV like they normally do in these cases and try to destroy the credibility of the actual person who had the crime permitted on them in most cases. So go ahead.
It's funny. Yeah, it's funny about this whole case. You shouldn't know who Officer Chavez or George Floyd ever was from a $20 counterfeit bill. And I try to tell Mr. Fantastic, but he likes to put his foot in his mouth too much. I said they're gonna make an example of his ass. You go to a damn spot with a counterfeit bill. Secret Service was not even gonna pick up the phone for that shit. You get the guy's information, you give the property back to the store owner, whoever the clerk or whatever issue it is. You write it up because a lot of people, believe it or not, a lot of people carry money. A lot of people don't even know they got counterfeit money, believe it or not. So there could be a mistake on his part. Who knows? But the fact of the matter is, we get from a call about a counterfeit bill to this shit. And to have your knee on somebody for that long, and you're trying to say you're subduing them, that's not professional. That's some, and then you put your hands in your pockets, smile at the camera. Come on, man. But like I said before, this is the guy who they're going to use as the example. I've told everybody for months already, hell, probably a year. Go to 21st century in policing and you see what they want as police. One of the biggest issues you go through with police in a lot of black communities is a culture shock. I've spoken to people in recruiting and they said they had so many times when black guys were disqualified for smoking weed once. Just for one act of smoking weed, that should disqualify you. Because guess what? People probably tried it, didn't like it, never smoked it again. They say, hey, you got to be honest. And they said, I tried it once. Disqualification. Even the recruiting went to the commissioner and said, that's bullshit. But you'll spend X amount of money for them to travel to Puerto Rico, Texas, West Virginia, Virginia itself, Pennsylvania, Boston, and predominantly a lot of these people never been around black culture, black people. So when you have people who don't understand and go off the deep end like he did, you're gonna get these issues all over again. You get a lady who apparently doesn't know where her taser is, but she knows instead, I guess, in her words, mistakenly pulled out her service weapon and shoot the guy several times.
Fuck.
when your taser is a cross draw, purposely done that way. So now you have it was funny. I don't know who said, I was listening to Benard stream, and you had one guy said, well, if a girl, guy, whoever came at you with a knife, well, I'll make some distance and I hit him with a taser. Okay, good luck with that, because that's a deadly force situation. Why the fuck you bringing out a taser?
Officer Charles, what I found highly hilarious was when you were on the show, and we can all disagree on certain political things. We can have those disagreements. I'm good with that. But ain't even get a little loud every now and again. That's cool. That ain't no problem. But people are going to question you, who are not police officers, never been on the job for a nanosecond, and question your questioning of police procedure and what was right, what was wrong. When I heard that, I had to go.
I've actually told people, you're not going to get true police reform until you get more black cops. See, when it comes to doing work in the black community, that's when the conversation changes. I'm like, look, you can't. You still want these motherfuckers to be police because the same shit's going to keep happening. But no, you don't want to guide your children and groom your children to these positions of power because you've been convinced that you can't join a white man's military or police department. But then you'll have these jackasses out there in YouTube land complaining about the affairs of Black America. So we're going to allow people to make anywhere from mid-level to six-figure jobs and positions in our cities. That's called a critical failure.
Life and death decisions.
Life and death. Think about it. There are times I told people, you know what? I'm not going to run after you. I'm not going to tell you to go to school. I'm going to go to your fucking father's house because I had a rapport with the father. Do you think his father whooping his ass did more than actually me just trying to arrest this kid? And the benefit of that, his record is still clean and he's shaped up. I had one of the guys I coached in wrestling. He wanted to join these guys of Glenwood and I'm ready, if you're familiar with the Baltimore area. And I grabbed him by his fucking collar and I said, you got 5 seconds to get the fuck out of here or I'm going to throw the fucking book at you. 2 weeks later, that whole block was federally indicted. Saved him from going to fucking federal prison. You cannot. I don't care. You get these guys from these West bumfuck areas. They can sympathize, meaning pity you, but they can never truly empathize. And Black people need to really realize we need those jobs and positions more than anybody else. How can you police me when you don't even know me? You don't know my struggle. You don't know the background. You don't even know the fucking area. Not every Black guy on a corner selling drugs. Black people are very social compared to anybody else in the world. If we know each other, we'll probably stand there and talk for 10, 15, maybe even 20 minutes and don't even realize the time flew that fast. That's something that's foreign to a lot of other races of people. But yet, brass tacks it's always hard to get down to brass tacks. When I say Black people are so emotional, we are. Why do you think everybody else got their reparations? They got tangibles. They got things you could touch, things you could use. The only victories we ever get in this country are symbolic. And you could quote me on that shit.
All right, let's go to thanks for your words, Officer Charles. Thanks for following us in the chat about credit check out. Hey man, you got your stuff figured out there?
Oh, yeah, man. Thanks for having me on the panel. Shout out to everybody here. Shout out to you, Officer Charles. I'm glad it sounds like you're feeling a little bit better. I know you were tangling with the monster there 2 months ago. So shout out to you, bro.
Yeah, I listen to Benard's show. I listen to it, when I'm off work, and no, nothing surprises me anymore with these guys. I mean, you're dealing with a group of people who actually still think the election was stolen, despite all the evidence saying contradictory. But I agree with what Mike said earlier. They didn't know the standards of what the Minnesota laws are. Despite this guy's former supervisor testifying against him, EMTs testifying against him, 3 experts, 2 that were not part of the state. They're just experts coming in that they brought in. I was surprised at the Man 2 verdict, not Man 2, the Murder 2 verdict. Because when that jury came back in 10 hours, I'm like, oh, well, they're going to convict him of all 3. But you got there are people, and I heard Nagone kind of mention this, and I'll just add to it. There are people in your manosphere that are just they're political neophytes. They're zygotes. They don't have critical thinking at all. And like I said, I've said before, the guys are moist, and that's all you can really. That's just where I leave it. The fact is that the jury got their instructions from the judge. The jury came back. It's done. Now the other, I guess, police officers, I didn't know they were also charged. I guess they go to trial, next year or something like that, and we'll have to see how that's presented. So, but I salute everybody that was on that panel. Shout out to Benard. That's not his fault that that's happening. And somebody in the chat made a good point. Towards the end, they started making it about Poon. I don't know how it got to that point. How does it get to that point? As I said, there's no logic there at all. So
they're just simply disrupt the conversation. It's like, when you had 3 of them on there was specifically there to disrupt the conversation, and then you had Obsidian kind of doing the SKC thing of trying to wriggle the conversation out of the actual. Why do you think this guy is not guilty? Talking about something that's specifically within Philly with somebody else within Philly. I'm like, look, man, y'all don't discuss these issues outside of this conversation. Y'all can have that conversation somewhere the hell else.
This is the question I wanted to really ask. How the hell can you admit that guy was innocent? Like that's the part that gets to me is when people were like, he's gonna get off. I said, oh hell no, he's not. You embarrassed that fucking department. You embarrassed that state. You embarrassed the whole fucking country with that shit. Really, nigga? I've looked at this shit and I'm tired. I'm sick and fucking tired. I'm sick and tired of a bunch of people, like you said earlier, who are gonna challenge my fucking expertise and say I'm not seasoned. The first week in field training, I didn't even graduate the academy yet. But 3 months of field, the first fucking 3 days I had to pull my gun on a suspect. I've done more in the first 6 months of my career than most of these fucking jurisdictions do in 10 years. And you're telling me that, let's say he was being rowdy, you couldn't go 10 blocks up the street away from the crowd, still with your body cam filming, and then put him in a medic? Those other cops, yes, should they be charged? Yes. You could have stopped this motherfucker.
Conspiracy, man.
Yeah, you got to think he's in handcuffs this whole time too. It's not even like you're even trying to restrain and detain. He's detained at this point.
And then I like to give people little information. When you go up for the sergeant exams, the oral board, you have to explain your introduction as being a newly promoted sergeant of how they have a duty to actually act and de-escalate a situation if possible. Meaning, it's going to be kind of hard to de-escalate a situation in the middle of a gun battle until the battle is over or a fight. But when you have the guy subdued in handcuffs, yo, buddy, I got him. Let's sit him up. You can't do that. We do that all the time. You can't tell the other officer, okay, take a walk. You little hike. Take a walk. Can't talk to the officer? No. What that Asian cop was a seditious coward. See, we're not using the right vocabulary of describing these motherfuckers. You have one who's a fucking murderer and others who are cowards. accomplices to the destruction. I don't give a fuck about the guy's career. We're talking about that case in particular. Because if you allow people to change the narrative, they'll tell you that, the abolitionists who fought for slavery were criminals. It's not ethical, it's not moral, and it's not professional. And I'm getting tired of people making these situations. Like I said yesterday, here it is. We had the Gray Faulkner Initiative. Well, we got an initiative. Here you go. By Professor Cerulean Gray and Officer Faulkner. Instead of saying, okay, what's the good, bad, and the ugly about this? Or this is a great plan. We could do this. You still got motherfuckers arguing about pussy. You still making an argument about who could get the most. What's the point of being select, non-select when you got a racist cop who see you as just a nigga?
Well, that's the thing. That's what I think is the distinction. They, for some odd reason, don't think any of this applies to them. And I'm just like, you come across the wrong guy, he's going to see you in the same light he saw George Floyd, whether you like it or not.
And I'm looking at it, I'm looking at it. Like, you know what? We'll take it out of the context of George Floyd, okay? I've said this before with the lieutenant. What's the fucking excuse there? That's one of the best of us. Last time I checked, when I took an oath, whether you committed 1,000 crimes or you're the fucking John Paul II, I gotta treat that situation the same. I gotta still make an attempt to save your life and do what's right. We can't pick it. Well, what about the lieutenant? Well, was he a Pookie and Ray Ray? Because to be a lieutenant in the military, you have to have a 4-year degree.
Yeah.
He's a full fucking uniform.
Yep.
The problem is this. We're allowing people who have no goddamn experience in the field to dictate what police reform is. Because how many of us are going to have police reform when it comes to, hey, we need more cops from the neighborhood who we want to be police? Just like you have JROTC in high school, why not have the Explorer program in high school? Give them college credit. Actually have more meetings and more training seminars between the public and the police. Instead of being so goddamn secretive about techniques, show them, give them simunitions, which is basically a paintball, only faster, and put them through scenarios. When you give a person an understanding of what you got to go through, people are less likely to go against you. So they're like, okay, now I see what this guy went through. Or now I see why this officer took this course. It may not be the perfect solution, but it's fucking better than nothing. But still, we got these people who want to talk about, well, the police need to be, well, in England, they don't have, well, this ain't England, baby. America was brought up by the fucking gun. So get rid of that.
Which they're not going to do anytime soon. So when people say they're going to disarm you, get the fuck out of here. They're not doing it. This is a gun state country. They manufacture, make weapons for a reason.
But you use it.
Yeah, but can I say something?
Wait, hold on, okay, right. Like the gun is more of an emotional type weapon that gives you the symbology of power and the ability to take life. It isn't about even protecting things under normal circumstances. I mean, it's a fashion item for some people, especially people who open carry. But if you black and you open carry, hey man, they're gonna check your ass out, and they're gonna follow your ass around everywhere, and somebody's gonna call the police on you every 5 minutes. So to me,
it's a fact.
To me, like the police overall should have been on the front lines of saying we don't want these weapons on the streets because they're gonna be used against us. And every time when most of the police never say anything about all of this gun stuff, like look, the incident that happened in Boulder, I think that guy was the first one who responded and the last person to get shot. Why? Modified weapon. That guy wouldn't have been able to kill all those people that quickly if he didn't have that magazine of that kind. The actual, law expired. NRA was happy about that. But then super quiet when the actual police officer get killed and 9 other people. It's like, look, man, I know criminals are going to be criminals, but at the end of the day, we don't need everybody having this level of armament unless they have some training so that way they can be held responsible if something happens.
But what you've even had law enforcement in some instances that have come out in some of these states against these laws, and people have ignored it. And that's why I always see it's funny. You'll have these guys who will say they're pro-police, but then they'll ignore that. And in the same vein, they'll say, oh, they'll talk about Second Amendment and all these other rights, freedom of speech, but then they don't care about freedom of assembly. They don't care about equal protection. It's just like, okay, you care about these so-called rights when it's beneficial to your agenda, but you don't care about them any other time.
Correct.
January 6th, totally.
Cass Rain, go ahead, man.
Yeah, I decide with Charles Faulkner because me and him have these discussions sometimes, and people did not know I kind of helped Charles start his channel. And now that I think back, now going on almost a year doing this with him, that this is well needed because we got a lot of dumb fucking niggas in this space. Some dudes should not be opening their fucking mouth at all if they're not in the field, have any expertise, or know even just the basic laws or statutories that might be just revealed. The reason why niggas consider opening their fucking mouth because entertainment. Most of their talking points are from fucking television, Fox News, all this shit. I don't watch fucking TV. As a black man, if we are a brother's keeper, we're black first, we always gotta look at our self-interest and the consequence down the line. If we let shit just slide by.
Yeah, it's fucked up. I'm willing to admit, being mad at tomorrow had some cussing out, shouting matches. But at the end of the day, can we logically sit at the table and say what's right is right and wrong is wrong? Can we fucking do that?
All day.
Because
I want to say fast place too.
Because I'm getting tired. It's I've started this channel with the help of Chaos to educate black people. We'll have fun. We'll talk about comic books, fashion, style sometimes, cognac and liquor.
Hell, even women.
Even women. And God knows, I could talk about that all day. But when the business needs to be done, see, a lot of people cannot question my work. When I have 15 people I help get into the military, I had 4 people get into the fire department, 4 in the police department. So I like to see a lot of motherfuckers who's talking all this shit, making books, challenge me on that shit when I'm actually changing lives in real time. Like I have a 98% graduation rate of all my wrestlers that I've coached. Your schools can't even get, half of these damn schools in the country are passing people with grade point averages of 0.13. It's a goddamn shame that we in the black community cannot listen to people of expertise. That's why I came up with that saying. I'll say such and such. Are you black? Yeah, I can tell because you always challenge the fucking experts in the field. What's the step? What's the next step after this case? What do you really think police reform should be? Why don't we have chapters started in each one of these damn cities in the manosphere to when stuff like this happen? Because guess what? You think the black women ain't forming up like Voltron? There's a reason why they getting $10 billion to keep you at the bottom of the fucking totem pole.
HR 7120. Yeah, apparently the 100 Black Men released a press release, and they're talking about supporting the HR 7120. So let's see what that bill is.
That's not
Let's see,
the George Floyd Policing Act, is it?
It is. That's what it
Okay.
sounds like. Yeah. So it's like this. We need to be able to come out and have substantive conversations, because the conversation about entertainment has just really taken over. And these are the things that need to repeatedly happen. As long as you have something to donate to the actual conversation at hand that is really on topic and on subject, I really don't mind the people who actually join and want to actually do this. But we got to be able to turn this stuff around for us, because nobody's going to go out there and organize on our behalf. Nobody's going to help you with issues with your woman. They know you have issues with your woman, which is the reason why you can't logically produce, because you haven't split off or tried to put them in line or left them behind for a little while till you get your stuff together. And then you get your stuff together, then you give it back to them. So they know what the issues are. But see, that's how they maintain their position, is by not helping you with yours issues. So these are things that are gonna have to be talked about and actually came up with an actual solutions. Because the solution is, you got to be able to believe people. You got to be able to believe bystanders. You got to be able to do. I mean, there was so much overwhelming evidence in this case to still have people on the other side. It's crazy. It is insane. And to them, you citing legislative mistreatment, which what other people see as racism, but I call it legislative mistreatment, based on the fact that there's not going to be any consequences thanks to who the clientele is. So it's like this. You're going to have to get involved, man. I mean, that's the only way this stuff is going to change. Dude, you can't passively sit on the sideline and expect for this stuff to change. Passively sitting on the sidelines is how we got exactly where we are now. What's going on, Jay Sean and Shaka? But this is where we are. And it's just that when you first get started on working on these things, you have to realize how far behind the 8 ball you are, how many people benefit from you not even participating. It's going to be a long ass road. But if you just focus on being productive and staying the hell up out of trouble and still fighting for police to be basically professional at work, we're talking about professionals at work here. You would not tolerate the fire department showing up to a place and deliberately letting something burn to the ground. You would think something is wrong with that. And the only thing that we're asking for is police to be professional at work. There's a bunch of things from the police activity channel where you can see that they make good shots all the time, every day. People have weapons, close counters, all that kind of stuff. The reason why it's not covered is because they were professional in those cases. We just want professionalism across the board. When I was in the military, dude, listen, man, you couldn't engage in that kind of stuff. And you needed to be able to learn and know the law. So that way there won't be all this wide open opinion about the Constitution, which is pretty clear. So I'm about to get up out of here. Renaissance man, any last words before we get up out of here? All right, Nagone, got any last words before we get up out of here?
Yeah, I just want to say something very quickly about, we're talking about police reform. And I know people had brought that up, which kind of circles around a lot of stuff right here. I don't think it's so much reform. I think it's really these cops are making choices to do some of the things they're doing as far as killing and shooting and so forth. So it really's got to go to the kind of people we put on this force than reforming what what police are about. A lot of these guys are making these choices to do what they're doing. George Floyd got killed by an individual who wanted to kill him. And this wasn't police reform. This was a sick individual who wanted to kill this man. So I think we really have to take a very close look at what this is really about and deal with it from that perspective. But that's pretty much about it. I can't deal with the shines. But anyway, I'm done. You go ahead. Go ahead, fam.
Chaos, Rain. Any last words before we get up out here?
The only thing I want to say at the end of the day, when we talk about the best interests of Black men, I'm on a testament seeing how we are moving mentally. And it shows for our actions when we open our mouths every day when we're confronting not amongst our own, but other racist people. And they already know that by how we are talking as men, they know we're completely programmed. And we're going to completely follow status quo and follow their talking points and not do no pushback. The only way Black men's going to make a change is they got to do something, take action. And normally what the Great Falk Nation brings out is to step of an action plan. It's not perfect, but it's just a start. Anybody else that got anything better, which I know there's some talented brothers out here that have that's thinking, could add on to it. You know, no plan is perfect. It's always a work in process until we get to the actual goal. Thank you, man. Tomorrow.
All right. Thanks for coming on, man. Officer Charles.
Number one, the difference between white and black people is simple. Black people pray for leaders, white people groom theirs. You're going to have to put some time, hard-earned time and sweat equity into grooming what you want. When the Chinese said we need more doctors, guess what they start producing? More doctors, because that's what they designated their children to be. If I have an issue with the police, military science dictates that if I do not have control of the land, sea, and the air, I must infiltrate the system from within and take it over as my own. Hopefully, you know, if I could get a moderator wrench, I could put a copy of the Great Faulkner Initiative for anybody who wants to read.
Hold on a second.
You could also join me at my channel, Charles Faulkner Jr., where we talk about many different subjects, especially when it pertains to law enforcement. When you're looking for answers, you can't look for other people to save you. I'll say this: the three things the black community hasn't given a damn about for so long: black boys, education, and being the heroes of your narrative. I am one of those people who's particular that black men, since you saved this country and you saved everybody else, including your women, it's time for you, black man, to save your goddamn self. Take the initiative, read it well, start the beginning. Start the beginning of a better life and a generational wealth. Woo! I'm out. And I'll post it in the chat.
Yeah, I just made you a lot, man. Mike, any last words before we get up out of here?
Hey, thanks for having me on.
All right, cool. So we're going to have like a police reform kind of a panel coming soon. You know, I didn't want to get into that on the actual Benard Riley stream because that would have been a dodge from the actual conversation itself. I'm actually interested in talking about those things. It's just that you got to have the mechanics of people who are actually serious about the outcomes of those things to start off that conversation. You just can't start off the conversation with people who don't have any type of investment in the actual outcomes. Because the people who are talking about women isn't just going to start talking about police reform. No, I'm not going to be a part of that. No, y'all don't have to do that some other time. But yeah, so I want to thank everybody for coming through. I'm the man tomorrow. Subscribe to the channel if you already haven't. You guys have a really nice night. Peace. Thanks for everybody for coming through.